She hid a bleeding Mafia boss in a diner pantry, then lied to the cop hunting him. Daisy Gallagher was just working the graveyard shift, scrubbing counters, and counting the hours until she could visit her injured brother. Then Alessandro Rossi stumbled through the door with a bullet wound in his side and a dirty detective sextant behind him. Daisy had one choice: call the police and watch them both die, or hide the monster in dry storage and become part of his war forever. Picture this, guys. It is 2:43 in the morning on a miserable Tuesday. The kind of night where the flashing police sirens just look like a bad painting on wet glass. We meet Daisy Gallagher. She is a ghost, just keeping her head down, pouring cheap coffee to pay off debts she never asked for.
But here is the crazy part, and honestly, there is a lesson here sometimes.
Playing it safe is exactly what puts you in the crosshairs, because out of nowhere, the city's absolute worst nightmare, a mob boss bleeding out from a gunshot, stumbles into her empty diner. He has a dirty cop right on his tail. In a split-second panic, Daisy lies to the cops to save this walking red flag. Big mistake, right? By the next morning, she realizes this absolute monster did not just remember her face. He is coming back to collect. The inside of Higgins' diner is straight-up depressing. We are talking a nasty mix of stale grease, burnt coffee, and way too much lemon bleach. Daisy is 24, but man, graveyard shifts age you fast. Her blonde hair is shoved into a messy bun, and her blue uniform is rocking a pie stain from some jerk customer hours ago. You can feel her exhaustion. She wipes her forehead. Eyes glued to the clock. Just 3 more hours. 3 more hours of this grind before she can catch the bus. I grab 4 hours of sleep and go see her little brother, Leo, at his care facility. Look, we have all been there, pushing ourselves to the breaking point for the people we care about. When you love someone, you do whatever it takes, even if it means smelling like old fries and cheap bleach. She is trying to shovel a mountain of medical bills from Leo's car accident with a tiny plastic spoon. It is a losing battle, but it is all she has got. The diner is a total ghost town. Nothing but the heavy rain smashing against the glass, and the loud hum of those ancient refrigerators in the back. Daisy is just zoning out, polishing a coffee mug, when the front doorbell violently goes off. A massive gust of freezing wind rips through the room, sending napkins flying everywhere. She looks up, and the greeting completely dies in her throat. The guy who just walked in? He does not belong in a rundown joint like this, and here is a tough truth about. Life, trouble, never waits for you to clear your plate. The universe loves to drop a fresh disaster on your doorstep when you are already drowning. This dude looks like he was carved out of pure stone, over 6 feet tall, built like an absolute tank, and carrying this terrifying dead silent energy despite the storm outside. He is wearing a custom charcoal gray suit that probably costs more than Daisy makes in 5 years. But it is not the insane wealth or his sharp jawline and dark hair that makes Daisy freeze. It is his posture. He is leaning super hard against the doorframe, his left hand handing a white handkerchief against his right side. You and I both know what that means. It just goes to show, it does not matter if you wear cheap uniforms or $1,000 suits. No matter how much power or money you flex in this world, at the end of the day, everybody bleeds exactly the same when the bullets start flying. That white fabric is totally soaked in thick, dark blood. Every time the guy takes a breath, a fresh wave spills through his fingers and drips right onto the floor Daisy just finished cleaning. He looks at her and demands coffee in this low, gravelly voice that shakes the whole room. Thick Italian accent. Pure boss energy. Daisy is completely paralyzed behind the counter. Her brain is screaming at her to smash the silent alarm under the register, because guys who bleed in diners at 3 in the morning always bring chaos with them. She finally stammers out that he needs an ambulance. Look, if there is one thing you should remember, it is to trust your gut. Your survival instincts kick in for a reason, and ignoring those massive red flags is how you end up in the worst kind of trouble. He locks his cold, dark eyes right on hers, and it literally pins her to the floor. It is the gaze of an absolute predator, zero fear, just totally calculating, even while he is bleeding out over his designer shoes. He drops his voice and tells her, "No cops, no medics, just pour the black coffee." Daisy swallows hard. She knows that look. It is the exact same terrifying stare those loan sharks had when they came to collect from her dad back in the day. It is the look of a guy who gives ultimatums, not options. Her hands are shaking, but she grabs a mug and fills it up. Honestly, sometimes being brave does not mean fighting back right away. Sometimes the absolute smartest form of self-defense is just surviving the next 5 minutes. She plays it smart, keeping her head down, and pouring the coffee. The mob boss drags himself toward the counter, every single step completely calculated to hide what must be mind-blowing pain. He heavily drops onto a cheap vinyl stool, his face ghostly pale and dripping with sweat. Then, his overcoat shifts, and Daisy spots at a massive matte black handgun, a Sig Sauer P 226, just chilling in his shoulder holster. Her heart is absolutely pounding like crazy. She nervously slides the coffee across the counter, but he does not even grab it. Instead, he uses his bloody hand to unhook his watch and slams it onto the counter. Guys, this is not just any watch. It is a Patek Philippe Grand Complications, worth a literal fortune. "I am going to sit here," the boss rasps, his breathing getting terrifyingly shallow. "I am going to drink this coffee," he orders. "You are going back to cleaning. If anyone asks, I have been here for an hour eating pie." Daisy looks completely panicked. "I cannot," she whispers, pointing at the massive blood trail he left across the floor. There is blood everywhere. The boss just gives this incredibly cynical smirk. "The police are the ones who shot me. So, I highly suggest you do not call them. Let that be a lesson. Sometimes the people supposed to protect you are the actual villains." Before Daisy can even process how totally screwed they are, the diner explodes in flashing red and blue lights. A cop car screeches into the wet parking lot like a bat out of hell. Instantly, the Mafia boss's whole vibe flips from exhausted to completely deadly. All his fatigue totally vanishes, replaced by this intense, lethal energy. His bloody hand drops right onto the grip of his gun. He is not even looking at Daisy anymore. His dead eyes are completely locked on the front door. Guys, this absolute unit is ready to kill, and he is fully prepared to die right here in a greasy diner. "Get down," he orders in a deadly whisper. He keeps the weapon hidden under his expensive coat, but his whole body is coiled up, like a massive snake just waiting to strike. You and I are about to see some crazy action. Daisy peeks out the rain-streaked window, and her stomach drops. She instantly recognizes that unmarked, black Crown Victoria parked outside, backed up by a regular cruiser. Two seriously shady-looking men step out into the pouring rain. The streetlights hit the lead guy's face, and it is Detective Harrison Miller. Daisy's stomach completely hits the floor. Everyone knows Miller. This guy is not a cop. He is a total shark wearing a shiny badge. He is notoriously corrupt, literally extorting local spots for fake protection money. The word on the street? Miller is heavily on the payroll of the rival syndicates. If this dirty cop is hunting the boss, he is not making an arrest. He is here for an execution. If bullets start flying, Daisy knows she is dead meat, because Miller never leaves loose ends. Absolute panic explodes in her chest, but then something crazy happens. That sheer terror gets totally overshadowed by her raw, hardcore instinct to survive. When your back is to the wall, you fight back. Daisy looks at the bleeding dawn, then at the front door, and then spots the cramped hallway leading to the back rooms. "They are not here to arrest you," she hisses, even Daisy excites herself with how steady she sounds. "That is Miller. He will kill us both." The Mafia boss actually looks at her, a rare flash of genuine surprise breaking his icy face. "Then I suggest you run out the back, little bird." But Daisy is way too smart for that. "There is an alley camera," she snaps, quickly rushing around the counter. "They will see me, and they will see you." She honestly does not know what possesses her to help him. But she knows her little brother Leo has literally nobody else, and she absolutely refuses to die in some dirty diner. You have always got to fight for the people you love. She grabs the mobster's good arm, and guys, his muscles feel like solid rock under that soaked coat. "Get up now," she orders. He hesitates for a split second, his dark eyes scanning hers to see if she is setting him up, but then he forces himself off the stool with a painful groan. Daisy basically drags this giant behind the counter, making him crouch down so the cops cannot see him. Then, moving at warp speed, she grabs her dirty mop bucket and aggressively scrubs at the massive blood drops on the floor. It smears into a messy pink stain that kind of blends with the checkered tiles. It is definitely not perfect, but it is the best she can do. "In here," she commands, literally shoving the city's most feared criminal toward the heavy metal door of the dry storage pantry. The pantry is absolutely pitch black and smells like flour sacks and raw onions. "If you make a sound, we both die," Daisy fiercely whispers into the dark. "If you betray me," the boss growls back, his voice incredibly lethal. "You will pray Miller kills you, Fuse." First, wow. Talk about setting boundaries. Daisy slams the heavy steel door, completely locking the Mafia boss inside the soundproof room. She barely makes it back to the main counter, violently tossing her bloody mop into the bucket and grabbing a fresh coffee pot, when the front door violently bursts open. Detective Miller arrogantly swaggers inside, dragging in a freezing gust of wind. He is this bulky, nasty guy in a cheap coat, his cruel little eyes darting around the room exactly like a paranoid, cornered rat. "All right, guys, let us set the scene. You and I are about to watch the ultimate standoff." Right behind the corrupt detective is this shaking rookie, grabbing his belt like it is his first day on the job. Detective Miller doesn't even bother faking a smile. His boots are making this gross, wet, squeaking sound on the diner tiles. He is scanning the whole room like a hawk. Daisy, our main girl, flips on her best clueless waitress voice. She pours him some coffee, her hands steady, but her heart is absolutely going a million miles an hour. He completely ignores the coffee and gets right in her face, smelling like wet dog and cheap cigars. Life lesson for you right here. Sometimes the scariest monsters do not wear masks, they wear police badges. Miller tries to press her, asking if she has been busy. Daisy just casually brushes it off, saying it is just her and the ghosts in there since midnight. But Miller is a predator, man. His eyes lock onto the wet floor and this tiny, almost invisible pink stain near the stool. He drops his voice into this super creepy tone, asking why she is mopping an empty diner. Daisy just plays the nervous, broke waitress card perfectly. She laughs this high-pitched laugh and says her boss will dock her pay if the place isn't spotless. She blames a random drunk guy throwing up. The lesson here? Always have an airtight alibi ready before the cops start asking questions. Miller is not buying it, trailing his hand down the laminated counter. The tension is absolutely insane right now. Miller stops dead in his tracks right in front of the hallway door. You know, the exact hallway where our bleeding Mafia boss is hiding. Miller rests his hand on his Glock and mentions they are hunting a guy in a ruined fancy suit. Daisy doesn't even blink. She just scrubs the counter harder and says they only get truckers and broke college students in this dump, but Miller just barks at the rookie to check the back. Guys, Daisy's blood completely freezes. The rookie stomps right past her and pushes into the hallway. Quick life lesson. When the universe decides to test your poker face, you better not flinch, or it is game over. Daisy is gripping that counter so hard her knuckles are pure white. She knows exactly how this plays out. If that rookie opens the pantry door, our injured mob boss is going to blow him away, and then Miller is going to kill everybody. The suspense is just brutal. The rookie is checking the bathroom, rattling the office door, and then he stops right in front of the heavy metal pantry door. He yells out, asking what is inside. Daisy has to force her voice to sound super cheerful, shouting that it is just dry storage. She tells him the handle is stuck and he needs to yank it. The lesson? In a life or death situation, your greatest weapon is keeping your cool when everything is on fire. So the rookie pulls the handle, and there is this loud thud, because he is doing it wrong, exactly like Daisy planned. The kid complains it is stuck, and Miller just completely loses his patience. He yells that if the guy was in there, he would have left a blood trail, and they are just wasting time. The rookie walks out and calls clear, but Miller gives Daisy this long, suffocating death stare. He leans in real close and whispers that if she is lying, her boss docking her pay will be the least of her problems. Daisy just looks down, playing the helpless civilian flawlessly. Here is a life lesson. Sometimes playing weak is the ultimate power move. Miller finally turns around and says they are leaving. Miller says they have a rat to catch, and the two cops finally walk out into the pouring rain. Daisy watches the police cruiser's tail lights completely fade away before her body just shuts down. She collapses behind the counter, literally covering her mouth to muffle her own sobbing. She just lied to a totally corrupt, dangerous cop to save a massive crime boss. She waits 5 agonizing minutes on the floor, just making sure they are not circling the block to trap her. When she finally stands up, her legs are like heavy lead. Life lesson time. True bravery is being absolutely terrified, but doing what you have to do anyway. She slowly walks to the back and grabs that heavy metal pantry handle. Daisy yanks the door open, and boom! Our guy is sitting on a 50-pound sack of flour in the dark, and his gun is aimed directly at her chest. Once he realizes it is just the waitress, he drops the weapon and lets out this massive sigh. Honestly, he looks absolutely terrible. The adrenaline crash is hitting him hard, and his face is completely pale. He tells him the cops are gone but could come back, so he needs to bounce. He tries to stand up, but his leg just totally gives out. He crashes into the metal shelves, knocking cans of peaches everywhere. The lesson for today? No matter how tough you think you are, everybody needs a little help when the chips are completely down. He starts cursing in Italian, grabbing his bleeding side. Daisy knows she should just let him be, but she steps right in and throws his heavy arm over her shoulder. She drags him out of the pantry and gets him into a cheap plastic chair in the break room. She runs to get the industrial first aid kit. When she gets back, this guy has ripped off his ruined fancy jacket. Beneath all that expensive fabric, he is shredded and covered in these old, silver scars. This guy has lived a seriously brutal life. But Daisy is only focused on the horrible, jagged bullet hole in his side. A quick life lesson here. You can tell everything about a person's past by the scars they try to hide. Our mobster grunts that the bullet went straight through, totally missing the vital organs. Daisy asks if he is a doctor now, dropping a little sarcasm because her fear has turned into this crazy, detached survival mode. He just stares at her with those dark eyes as she works. She dumps a huge bottle of antiseptic right onto the open wound. The guy doesn't even scream, but his jaw clenches so hard it looks like his teeth are going to break. She packs the wound with a massive pile of gauze. Since they are in a diner, she grabs a roll of silver duct tape from a toolbox to wrap the bandages tight. The lesson is simple. When you are out of fancy options, you use whatever is in front of you. The guy looks at the duct tape and actually sounds impressed. Daisy just snips the tape and tells him it will hold until he finds whatever shady back alley doctor his kind uses. She steps back, suddenly realizing how insanely close she is to this dangerous man. He smells like expensive sandalwood mixed with the sharp scent of blood. Stick with me here, because this is where the dynamic totally flips. He looks at her and asks the million-dollar question. Why did she do it? She knew Miller would kill her, yet she risked everything. Daisy fires back, saying if he died in her diner, she would be the one forced to clean the mess. Life lesson. The best cover for doing something noble is pretending you are just lazy. She tells him she definitely doesn't get paid enough to mop up dead bodies. The boss actually lets out this low, rumbling chuckle. It is a super dark, intimidating sound. He finally stands up, testing his balance. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out this massive silver money clip, loaded with perfectly crisp $100 bills. He peels off a thick stack, some of them literally smeared with his own blood, and tosses them on the table. He tells her it is to pay for the mop. Daisy snaps right back, telling him she doesn't want his dirty money, and demands he leaves and never comes back. Here is your life lesson. Taking Mafia money is like swallowing a fish hook, so never take the bait. She tells him to pretend this whole crazy night never even happened. The boss just buttons his ruined shirt and heads for the back alley exit. But right before he steps out, he turns back. The neon sign outside hits his face, making him look like an absolute demon. He stares at her name tag and reads it out loud. Daisy Gallagher. The way he rolls the R makes it sound incredibly dangerous. It is right on the line between a promise and a threat. He tells her that men like him never forget their debts, and he owes her his life. Then he just vanishes into the storm. A critical life lesson here. The absolute last thing you want in this world is a crime lord, owing you a massive favor. Daisy just stands there in the break room, completely shell-shocked. Eventually, she pockets those bloody $100 bills. Why? Because her brother Leo needs his medication and life lesson. Survival always beats out morality when your family is on the line. She spends the rest of the night scrubbing. By 6 a.m, the diner is absolutely shining, smelling like heavy bleach instead of crime scene blood. The sun comes up over Chicago, gray and miserable. Her sweaty, balding manager, Higgins, rolls in with the morning waitress, who is already whining about a hangover. Higgins immediately yells her name, complaining that the diner smells like a hospital ward. Guys, picture this! We open on our girl Daisy getting absolutely cooked by her cheapskate boss, Higgins. He is literally docking her pay for using too much bleach. Like, seriously? Daisy is running on 0 sleep. Her bones are rattling, and that crazy bloodbath she dealt with last night, saving that mysterious bleeding guy, it feels like a straight-up fever dream. All she wants is to grab her busted purse, clock out, and go check on her little brother. I am out, she mutters idle, leaving Higgins drooling over his penny-pinching ledger. She hits the cold morning street, wrapping her flimsy jacket tight, just dragging herself toward the bus stop at 4th and Elm. But hold up. She barely makes it down the block before the ground starts shaking. A massive, synchronized rumble hits the pavement. Daisy spins around, and her heart straight up drops to her shoes. Rolling into that crusty, weed-infested diner parking lot are 4 brand-new, pitch-black Cadillac Escalades. We are talking windows so tinted. They look like pure obsidian blocks. They whip into a flawless semicircle, completely trapping the diner. Nobody is getting in or out. The morning traffic on 4th Avenue literally hits the brakes. Pedestrians are sprinting the other way because they know something major is about to go down. The doors pop open in perfect sync. 12 absolute units step out. These guys are not your average street thugs. They are straight up. Soldiers rocking immaculate, tailored dark suits. They move with this terrifying military precision. Right in the middle, stepping out of the lead vehicle, is an older, distinguished dude with silver hair and a wicked scar slashing right through his eyebrow. He is totally new to Daisy, but he is radiating that exact same terrifying, boss-level aura as the bleeding guy she patched up last night. He casually fixes his silk tie, gives one icy nod, and boom, the 12 suits march on the diner like a hit squad. Daisy is locked in pure dread. The guy she saved in the pantry. He was not just some random criminal. Stick with me here, because this is where the plot thickens. The dude was absolute mafia royalty, and Daisy's nightmare is just getting started. She is frozen solid on that cracked sidewalk, the cold wind slicing right through her cheap denim jacket. Her bus literally rolls up, brakes hissing, doors open, but she does not move an inch. Look, sometimes in life, when trouble comes knocking, running only delays the inevitable. You have to face it. She cannot look away from the absolute masterclass in intimidation happening at the diner. 2 goons stay at the Escalades, hands tucked inside their jackets, hawking the rooftops. 4 more lock down the corners. The perimeter is totally sealed. The silver-haired boss man oozes lethal authority as he casually strolls through the glass doors, 6 heavy hitters right on his heels. Daisy's breathing goes completely erratic. Every survival instinct is screaming at her to hop that bus and vanish. But think about it. If they want to tie up loose ends, Running just makes her the prey. Plus, her dirtbag boss Higgins has that ledger in the back office. It has her home address, her social security, and worse, the exact location of the care facility where her brother Leo lives. Not happening. Swallowing down a massive lump of terror, she turns around and sprints back down the block, her sneakers splashing through dirty puddles. She creeps up to the diner's massive plate glass window, pasting herself against the freezing, damp brick to peek inside. The morning rush has not hit yet, so it is a ghost town except for Higgins and Sarah, the hungover morning waitress. Poor Sarah is literally backed into a corner booth, shaking like a leaf, clutching a half-empty coffee pot like it is a shield. And Higgins? The guy who screams his lungs out over a batch of cold fries? His soul has officially disconnected from his body. He is pinned against the cash register, his face a nasty, chalky gray, bug-eyed at the absolute unit of a mob squad taking over his turf. The silver-haired Don casually glides right to the center of the room. Get this, he does not yell. He does not even flash a weapon. He just drops an aura so heavy, it sucks the oxygen right out of the building. Mr. Gregory Higgins, he purrs. His voice is ridiculously smooth, cultured, dripping with a faint Italian accent. I am Domenico Moretti. I represent certain business interests. Higgins is sweating bullets, wiping his greasy hands on his apron. I pay my dues. Detective Miller gets his envelope every month. I am paid up. Domenico just gives him this bone, chilling, polite little smile. Detective Miller is currently exposed. He suffered a very sudden, fatal heart attack in his car an hour ago. Outside, Daisy gasps. Boom, the dirty cop is already dead. That scumbag cop who terrorized their block for 10 whole years. Scrubbed off the map before breakfast. The bleeding Mafia king she saved was not bluffing for a single second. I am not here to collect an envelope, Mr. Higgins, Domenico says smoothly, closing in on the counter. One of his muscle-bound soldiers steps up and slams a sleek, pitch-black briefcase on the cheap Formica. The locks snap open with a sharp click. Domenico spins it around and is absolutely stuffed with fat, banded stacks of $100 bills. My employer wishes to purchase this establishment, he announces, whipping a flawless, legally binding contract out of the lid and dropping it right next to the mountain of cash. Effect immediately. Here is $500,000, way more than this absolute grease trap is worth. You sign the deed, take the bag, and catch a noon flight to Florida. You never show your face in Chicago again. Guys, you and I both know this is not a negotiation. Higgins looks at the cash, then at the dead-eyed hitman boxing him in. It is a straight-up command. If he does not sign, he is leaving in a body bag. Shaking like crazy, Higgins yanks a cheap pen from his pocket and frantically scribbles his name on the dotted line. Excellent, Domenico purrs, snapping the briefcase shut and smoothly tucking the contract into his tailored suit. Now get out. Higgins does not hesitate for a microsecond. He scrambles over the counter, leaves his coat, and completely bolts into the back alley. Good riddance. Domenico pivots his icy gaze to Sarah, who is practically hyperventilating. Where is the blonde from the night shift? Sarah absolutely loses it. She left. Her shift ended. Please do not kill me, Domenico sighs, sounding slightly annoyed. Nobody is hurting you. Get out. We are closed. Sarah sprints out the door, sobbing hysterically. Outside, Daisy does the math. They are hunting for her. If these guys hit the streets, she is toast. So, what does our girl do? She takes a massive breath, squares her shoulders, and marches right through the front doors. The second that entry bell chimes, 6 pairs of dead eyes lock onto her. Hands instantly twitch toward concealed holsters. But Domenico just raises one hand, and the hitmen stand down like perfectly trained attack dogs. The silver-haired consigliere turns, his razor-sharp eyes scanning her busted jacket, her messy bun, and the absolute fire in her eyes. Daisy Gallagher, I presume, he says, his voice is actually softening. Daisy panics, her heart going a million miles an hour. I do not know anything, she blurts. I pour coffee. I did not see anything, and I did not snitch. Domenico actually chuckles this warm, weirdly grandfatherly sound. Peace. Miss Gallagher. You completely misunderstand. Domenico smiles. We are not here to silence you. We are here to say thank you. He sweeps his arm across the room. On behalf of Don Alessandro Rossi, this diner is now yours. Daisy freezes. That name drops like a nuclear bomb. Alessandro Rossi? The guy is a total phantom, the untouchable god of the Rossi syndicate, who owns the docks, the politicians, everyone, and she literally shoved him into a dusty pantry and wrapped him in cheap duct tape. Mine? She whispers, totally stunned. She looks around the absolute dump of a diner, from the burnt-out neon sign to the nasty linoleum floors. She was just scrubbing on her hands and knees. The deed will be in your name by 5 o'clock. Domenico adds casually, like they are talking about the weather and not mafia blood money. We will gut the interior. Contractors are on standby. You are the sole boss now. Don Rossi insists that loyalty is rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. But instead of jumping for joy, Daisy feels this blazing hot rage slice, right through her fear. See, a quick life lesson here. Guys, money does not mean a thing if it does not fix what is really broken. She thinks about her little brother Leo, trapped in a depressing, sterile hospital room, while she grinds her fingers to dust just to pay his medical bills. A shiny new diner does not save him. She remembers the pure terror when that dirty cop Miller leaned over her counter. She refuses to be a simple pawn in some mob boss's twisted game of gratitude. No, she says, just like that. Domenico's perfectly groomed eyebrow twitches up a fraction of an inch. Behind him, a massive enforcer visibly shifts, completely baffled. Nobody says no to the Rossi syndicate. Excuse me? Domenico asks, his voice dropping an octave. I said no. Daisy fires back, finding her spine. She steps right up to the counter, staring down all that terrifying wealth and violence. I do not want this dump. I do not want his money. I saved him because he was dying, and a dirty cop was about to ice us both. Daisy looks this absolute Mafia unit dead in the eyes and says she is not about to be in the pocket of the mob. Domenico is just staring at her, completely shook but fascinated. The big boss, Don Rossi, told him she was fiercely independent, a literal firecracker in this dark city, and now he is seeing it live. She tells him they are totally even. He lived, she lived, end of story. She does not want his diner, and she definitely does not want him anywhere near her. She just spins around and marches straight out of that diner, fully expecting a bullet to the back of her head. But nothing happens. She speed walks to the bus stop, jumps on the 7:15 a.m. transit, and completely ghosts the place without a single look back. Lesson here, guys. Sometimes the best defense against toxic people is just walking away. Let's look at this closely, because you and I know the mob does not let people walk away. Daisy spends 3 hours in her tiny apartment, pacing holes into the carpet, waiting for suits to kick her door in. By 11 a.m., the adrenaline crash hits so hard she feels physically sick. She forces herself to shower, grabs clean jeans, and heads to the Sterling Care facility. This hospital is straight up depressing, a bleak cinder block nightmare smelling like ammonia and cabbage. It is not a luxury spot, but it is the only place taking a spinal injury patient on a budget plan. She walks up to the reception desk, pulling out her beat-up checkbook. The lesson here? True loyalty means showing up for your loved ones even when you are completely exhausted and terrified. The monthly installment is due today, a massive $1,200. She barely scraped together, from waitressing tips, her tiny paycheck, and those bloody $100 bills Alejandro left on the table. She feels absolutely gross using that mafia money, but her brother Leo needs care, and that always comes first. She walks up to the tired receptionist behind the plexiglass to pay for room 214. The receptionist taps on her keyboard, looks up with massive eyes, and drops an absolute bomb. Leo is not in room 214 anymore. Guys, Daisy literally stops breathing. Her whole world tilts on its axis in sheer panic. Where is her brother? Did the mob get him? Did something terrible happen? Remember to always brace yourself for the worst, because life loves a plot twist. Brenda sees the terror draining from Daisy's face and quickly shuts down the panic. He is fine. Actually, he was moved to the Vanguard wing on the top floor. The ultra-private luxury suites. Daisy is staring like her brain completely short-circuited. That wing costs $5,000 a week. Who authorized that? Brenda shows her the monitor, and it is totally wild. A wire transfer hit at exactly 8 a.m. The entire balance is completely wiped clean. All his backdated surgeries, 2 whole years of physical therapy, and the fancy suite are fully covered. Look at this absolute flex, guys. The life lesson here is simple, but totally brutal. Huge favors from strangers usually come with the most dangerous hidden strings attached to them. Daisy grips the counter, whispering her question of who paid for it all. Brenda smiles, claiming it was an anonymous trust, and calling it a sweet guardian angel. But guys, Daisy does not feel blessed at all. She feels like absolute prey caught in a trap. She rides the elevator up, stepping onto thick, soundproof carpets that smell like fresh lavender instead of cheap bleach. She pushes open the heavy door to room 501, and the place is incredible. Huge windows show off the entire city skyline. Her 19-year-old brother, Leo, is chilling in a high-tech bed, watching a giant flat screen and looking so much better. The lesson here? Always trust your gut instincts. When a sudden miracle seems way too perfect, there is almost always a dangerous catch waiting for you in the shadows. Right next to Leo is this giant vase of 24 pure white roses. Leo is completely grinning, looking more alert than he has in months. He is hyping up the place, saying the nurses actually smile, and they gave him a legit restaurant menu for lunch. Daisy is choking back tears, kissing his forehead, while her mind races. Then her eyes lock onto those pristine white roses. Tucked right in the middle of the blooms is a thick, black, embossed envelope. Just looking at it screams Mafia boss drama. With her hands totally shaking, she pulls the envelope out and breaks the dark wax seal. Inside is a single piece of heavy cream cardstock. The lesson here is that every luxury has a hidden cost, and the bill always comes due when you least expect it. The handwriting on that card is sharp and elegant. It reads that a debt is not settled until he says it is settled, and he will be seeing his little bird tonight. Signed A.R. Daisy. Just crushes the note in her fist. She tried to refuse his money and property, but Alejandro Rossi is a mafia mastermind who understands leverage better than anyone breathing. By literally buying her brother's life, he completely bought hers too. She is no longer just some regular waitress scraping by. She is fully trapped in the terrifying, inescapable web of the city's absolute most dangerous predator, and he is coming to collect his dues. Life lesson time, folks. Sometimes the absolute tightest chains that bind you are forged right out of the very things you love the most. The countdown to sunset is pure paranoia. Daisy heads back to her sketchy apartment, an insane contrast to that billionaire hospital suite. Every creak of the floorboards sends a massive jolt of adrenaline into her heart. She thinks of 100 escape plans, but she cannot run. Alejandro made that clear by paying for Leo's care. It is a masterclass in manipulation, a shiny gift wrapped in titanium chains. If she runs, Leo loses everything, and the mob will hunt her down regardless. She is completely tethered to a literal monster by her pure love for her brother. By 7 p.m., the sun dips down, casting incredibly creepy shadows across her living room. The lesson here? Love is undoubtedly your greatest strength, but in the wrong hands, it can easily become your biggest weakness. Daisy stands before her cracked mirror, preparing for war. She wears a modest black wrap dress usually saved for funerals. It acts as her psychological armor, giving absolutely nothing away. She ties her hair back tight and refuses to wear a single drop of makeup. She is not about to dress up for this boss. She is a straight-up hostage, not a lucky date. At 7:30 p.m., a massive knock completely rattles her front door. Daisy totally freezes. She takes a deep breath, smooths her dress with sweating hands, and checks the peephole. It is not Alejandro. It is an absolute unit of a man in a tailored navy suit, rocking a broken nose and completely dead, emotionless eyes. The lesson here is simple. Always dress for the fierce battle you are fighting, not the romantic date your enemy wants you to have. She opens the door, and this giant rumbles that his name is Carlo. The big boss sent him to collect her. Daisy keeps her chin up, even though her knees are totally knocking, and bravely asks what happens if she flat out refuses. Carlo does not even blink. He drops the coldest line, saying Don Rossi prefers polite invitations, but is totally prepared to use highly impolite methods. He highly recommends the polite way for her sake and the safety of her neighbors. Guys, that is not a threat. It is just a chilling statement of pure Mafia fact. Daisy gives a single nod, grabs her coat, and locks up her apartment, basically leaving her normal life behind. The lesson is crucial here. Sometimes you have to recognize when you are completely outmatched and just play along to survive another day. Down on the street, a sleek, bulletproof Mercedes Maybach is idling. The tinted windows turn this car into an absolute rolling fortress. Carlo opens the door, and Daisy slides onto the buttery leather seats. The interior smells like expensive cedar and dark cigar smoke. When that heavy door shuts with a solid, airtight thud, you can feel the last pieces of Daisy's normal life completely vanishing. Stick with me here, because the drive is a blur of neon lights. They head straight toward the Gold Coast, where sprawling, historic mansions and ultra-exclusive old money hide the city's darkest secrets. The life lesson here is undeniable. Massive wealth might build incredibly beautiful fortresses, but it also builds the absolute toughest, most inescapable prisons in the world. The Maybach rolls up to the massive wrought iron gates of Hawthorne Manor, a huge Gothic-style estate looking over Lake Michigan. This place is famous in high society, completely walled off from normal people. Intense security cameras track their every move as the heavy gates swing wide open. The luxury car glides up a fancy cobblestone driveway, and Carlo parks right by the grand entrance. When Daisy steps out into the crisp night air, the sheer, crushing magnitude of this massive estate presses right down on her shoulders. Two seriously armed men in dark suits are flanking the giant mahogany front doors. They silently step aside to let her walk right in. Guys, always remember that no matter how incredibly fancy the gates look, a villain's lair is still incredibly dangerous territory. The interior of Hawthorne Manor is absolutely breathtaking, but totally oppressive. We are talking soaring ceilings, massive chandeliers, and priceless Renaissance art on every wall. But do not get it twisted. This palace was built entirely on blood and vicious extortion. Daisy walks up the grand staircase, her black flats making zero sound on the plush Persian rugs. When she reaches the top floor, a set of heavy oak doors is cracked open. Warm golden light spills out, and classical music, Vivaldi, is playing softly on a vintage vinyl record. She pushes the doors open and steps straight into the literal lion's den. The lesson here? True evil rarely looks ugly on the outside. It almost always hides behind a beautiful mask of incredible elegance and staggering wealth. The library is massive, packed with old leather-bound books, and a roaring fire cracking in a stone hearth. Standing by the window, looking out over the dark lake, is Alejandro Rossi himself. He ditched the ruined suit from last night. Now he is rocking a crisp white dress shirt, with the sleeves rolled up, showing off heavily tattooed forearms and tailored trousers. He is swirling a crystal glass of amber liquor. Even though he moves stiffly from the bullet wound, Daisy, patched up, the man still oozes this terrifying, absolute predatory grace. Without even turning around, his deep voice rumbles through the room, calling her punctual and noting it as a highly rare trait. The ultimate lesson? Never let an apex predator know how completely terrified you actually are when you step into their territory. Picture this. You are backed into a corner with a literal mafia boss. Daisy looks right at him, her voice tight, and says she did not exactly have a choice in saving his life. Alejandro slowly turns around. The firelight hits his sharp, expensive-looking face, and his dark eyes lock onto hers with this crazy magnetic intensity. He takes a slow sip of his bourbon, looks at her plain black dress, and tells her there is always a choice. He walks up to her, bringing that heavy scent of sandalwood, and points out she chose to hide him. She chose to lie to a hitman. She chose to walk away from $500,000. Here is the lesson for us today, friends. Every single action we take is a choice. even when we feel totally trapped by our worst circumstances. You can practically feel the tension radiating off his jaw. There is just raw, lethal power coiled under that calm suit of his. But Daisy refuses to back down. Every survival instinct is screaming at her to run, but she stands her ground and tells him she does not want his dirty money paying for her brother. Alejandro gets this terrifying flash of pure anger in his eyes. He leans in and tells her never to mistake his generosity for charity, calling her his little bird. He says he makes investments, not gifts. But Daisy snaps right back. She is just a waitress trying to survive, and he dragged a literal mob war into her diner. It reminds you that sometimes, standing up to the absolute worst bullies is the only way to keep your dignity intact, no matter how scared you are. Daisy is totally losing her mind at this point. She begs him to just let her go, pointing out that his secret is safe, and he is still breathing. Then, out of nowhere, Alejandro reaches out. His huge, rough hand gently catches a piece of her blonde hair and tucks it behind her ear. The touch is so soft it is actually terrifying, coming from a guy who deletes people for a living. Daisy completely freezes up. He drops his voice to this crazy, intimate whisper and drops a massive bomb on her. That dirty detective did not act alone. Daisy steps back, totally confused, asking what he means. Alejandro just turns and walks over to his massive desk. Honestly, the takeaway here is that the people who seem the most cold and ruthless usually have a hidden motive for the soft things they do. Stick with me here, because this is where the plot goes completely off the rails. He tosses a thick folder onto the polished wood, and grainy surveillance photos spill out. Daisy creeps over, and her heart just stops. There are pictures of her diner, pictures of her waiting for the bus, and pictures of a picture of her walking into the hospital just a few hours ago. Alejandro goes full ice cold. He explains the dirty cop was just a dog on a leash for the Falcone family. Lorenzo Falcone has been trying to steal his territory for 6 months, and the whole hit was a setup. Daisy feels all the blood drain from her face. It goes to show that in life, ignorance really is bliss. Finding out you are secretly being watched by a rival mafia family is an absolute, literal nightmare. So now Alejandro breaks down the terrifying reality of her situation. He leans against the desk and says the rival family sent their own goons to investigate when the hit failed. They know he went into her diner. They know she was the only one on shift. And they know the cop walked out with absolutely nothing. He picks up that creepy hospital photo and tells her the brutal truth. To the Falcone family, she is not just a random civilian anymore. She is a massive loose end, or even worse, they think she works for him now. By saving a mafia boss, she accidentally stepped onto the chessboard, and pawns always get sacrificed first. The lesson is simple but harsh. Sometimes doing the right thing, like saving a life, pulls you into drama you are completely unprepared to handle. Daisy is gripping the desk like her life depends on it. She asks if they are going to kill her. But Alejandro gets this intensely possessive, lethal look in his eyes. He says they will not just kill her, they will use her brother to force his hand. That is exactly why he already moved her brother to a secret hospital wing under a fake name, guarded entirely by his own mafia muscle. Daisy is basically spinning out. Her old life of struggling with double shifts and unpaid bills is totally dead, replaced by this insane underground world of hitmen and surveillance. She whispers that he ruined her life. It makes you realize how quickly your normal, boring routine can become the one thing you desperately wish you could have back. Life changes fast, guys. She blames him for ruining everything, but Alejandro snaps right back with a harsh reality check. He tells her he is the only reason she is still breathing. If she had handed him over to that dirty cop, the rival family would have burned her diner to ash with her inside, just to clean up the scene. He steps right into her space, totally towering over her. He says he actually respects her fire for wanting to stay independent, but independence is a luxury she can no longer afford in this deadly game. Her voice cracks as she asks what he actually wants from her. He drops his voice super low and says he wants her, exactly where he can see her. The life lesson. Pride is a great thing to have, until it becomes the exact thing that gets you taken out when the stakes are life or death. Look at this insane setup. He tells her she is moving into his massive estate, guarded 24/7. In exchange, she just has to show up on his arm at public events, so the rival family thinks she belongs to him and backs off. Daisy lets out a bitter laugh and asks if he seriously expects her to play his mistress. She actually calls him Alejandro for the first time, refusing to be his pawn. And guys, he totally loves it. A predatory smirk creeps onto his face. He whispers that she will be his guest, not his mistress. He reminds her she is the legendary woman who outsmarted a corrupt cop and literally put duct tape on a mafia boss. We should all remember that sometimes the moments where we feel the weakest are actually the exact moments we prove our absolute strongest. He tells her she is something entirely different. Then, he pulls out a heavy platinum key card and slides it across the desk. He completely flips back into his boss persona, casually mentioning that all her clothes have already been moved to the east wing of his mansion. He promises her brother will get the absolute best medical care, and she will never want for anything again. Daisy just stares at that key card. She knows she is completely trapped. She could scream or throw a fit, but the cold, hard truth is that the rival syndicate wants her gone, and the literal devil is offering her a safe house. She slowly reaches out and takes the card. It teaches us a grim lesson about survival. Sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil, just to keep the worst demons away from your front door. The metal card feels freezing in her hand. She looks up at him, and you can practically see her blue eyes hardening into absolute ice. She is done being the victim. If she is going to survive this insane mafia underground, she has to learn the rules. She softly agrees to play his game and be his fake shield against the Falcones. But then she drops a bomb of her own. She has a condition. You can see the genuine shock on Alejandro's face, because nobody gives the boss conditions. She steps right up into his space, looks into his dangerous eyes, and says if she is going to be a target, she refuses to be helpless. He is going to teach her how to shoot. Here is the big takeaway, guys. If you are ever forced into a dangerous game, you better demand the tools you need to fight back. We cut to 3 weeks later, and the vibe is completely different. Daisy is down in the underground firing range beneath his massive manor. It smells like gunpowder, damp concrete, and his signature sandalwood cologne. She has officially traded her greasy diner uniform for designer clothes in this gilded cage. She is standing at the firing line with a sleek black Glock 19, totally focused. Suddenly, his deep voice comes through her headset, telling her she is standing too stiff. Before she can even move, he is right there. His solid chest presses against her back, and his rough hands cover hers to adjust her grip. The lesson here? Growth requires getting uncomfortable. Sometimes you have to let someone who intimidates you guide your hands until you learn to protect yourself. The tension in this scene is absolutely off the charts. You and I can both see what is happening here. His breath is brushing her neck, giving her these wild thrills that definitely are not fear. He purrs right into her ear to lean into it and control the recoil, not let the weapon control her. Daisy breathes out and squeezes the trigger. The shot echoes loudly, and she hits the target dead center in the chest. Alejandro softly praises her and steps back, leaving her actually missing his body heat. He tells her she learns fast, and she assists him with the coldest line, saying survival is a great motivator. She clears the chamber perfectly and turns around. It just goes to show that true confidence comes from mastering the exact things that used to terrify you the most. Over the last 3 weeks, the tension between these two has basically become a physical weight in the room. She is supposed to be his captive alibi, but those boundaries are completely melting away inside that massive manor. He treats her with this terrifying possessiveness that just makes her blood run hot. Now it is time to face the music. Alejandro looks her up and down and says, "Tonight is the ultimate test." They are heading to a massive charity ball at the Palmer House Hilton. Every single heavy hitter in Chicago will be there, including the mayor's crew, local politicians, and the man of the hour himself, Lorenzo Falcone. Daisy swallows hard. It shows us that you can practice all you want in the shadows, but eventually, you have to step out into the spotlight and face your biggest demons. Daisy nervously asks if he is sure this rival boss will actually take the bait. Alejandro just confidently walks over to a steel bench and grabs a velvet box. He snaps it open to reveal this absolutely insane diamond and sapphire choker. He explains that Falcone is wildly arrogant and thinks he can win by threatening what belongs to the Rossi family. Alejandro steps right up, clipping those freezing diamonds around her neck, letting his knuckles brush her skin. He tells her to stay close, smile, and remember that she bows to nobody. 3 hours later, our girl is stepping out of a bulletproof Maybach, right onto the red carpet. The main takeaway to wrap this up: when you walk into a room full of wolves, you have to hold your head high and make them believe you are the one holding the leash. Picture this, guys. Daisy is absolutely slaying in a midnight blue silk gown. She is dripping in diamonds, looking like pure royalty, while paparazzi cameras go wild. Then, Alessandro steps in, his hand on her back, projecting straight-up terrifying Mafia boss energy. The ballroom of Chicago elites literally parts for them. The crowd whispers in shock, because the notorious Don Rossi actually brought a woman into the public eye. For an hour, it is a flawless performance. Daisy plays the untouchable queen, smiling at corrupt politicians like an absolute pro. But boom, plot twist! The illusion shatters when a sweating, panicking politician in a cheap tuxedo corners Alessandro by the ice sculpture. Quick life lesson for us all. No matter how flawless your setup is, messy drama is always waiting right around the corner. This paranoid politician hisses about a mass problem with the dock permits, begging for 5 minutes in private. Alessandro clenches his jaw and orders Daisy to stay put, reminding her his top muscle Carlo is nearby. Daisy confidently promises she will be fine, casually sipping her champagne. The second Alessandro dips into a VIP room, she tries to calm her racing heart by staring at an old painting. But guys, wait for it. Just as she catches her breath, a highly toxic voice slithers up behind her, mocking her about being a long way from pouring stale diner coffee. She turns to find a guy in a flashy white tuxedo, stepping out from a marble pillar. Real quick life lesson. The exact moment you let your guard down in a fancy crowd is exactly when the real snakes come out of hiding. This guy is Lorenzo Falcone, looking like a textbook villain, with slick blonde hair and icy eyes. He rolls up with 2 massive guards who totally block Daisy from her protector's view. But Daisy does not flinch. She channels her inner mafia boss and smoothly pretends she has zero clue who he is. Lorenzo just laughs in her face, calling her a stray dog that Alessandro picked up. Then, he drops the absolute biggest plot twist of the night. He casually asks how her brother Leo is doing in room 501 at the hospital. Daisy freezes as her blood turns to ice. Lorenzo sneers, whispering that Alessandro thought he was so smart. Simple life lesson. If a rival really wants to destroy your life, they will always target the people you love the most. Lorenzo hits her with the wildest ultimatum. He has hitmen entering that hospital right now, and her brother only lives if she leaves with him through the service elevators immediately. Panic completely explodes in her chest. Lorenzo stares at her with a highly smug predator grin, expecting her to completely break down. He assumes this former waitress will cry, beg, and walk straight to her own execution. But here is the massive twist. Daisy has not been a weak waitress since the night she scrubbed mob blood off her floor. Instead of freaking out, she just takes a slow, entirely unbothered sip of her champagne. Life lesson, guys. Never assume someone is harmless, just because of their background. Sometimes the cornered rabbit is actually a total monster in disguise. Daisy stares into Lorenzo's icy eyes, and instead of fear, she feels a huge rush of pure adrenaline. She reaches into the slit of her dress, her fingers brushing the cold metal strapped to her thigh. Oh yes, the queen is packing heat. She drops her voice to a lethal whisper That sounds exactly like her Mafia boss boyfriend, asking if he thinks he is the first guy to threaten her family. Lorenzo's smug smile finally cracks. Daisy steps right into his personal space and drops an absolute logic bomb. Did he seriously think Alessandro Rossi would leave that hospital unguarded? She reveals they fully knew Lorenzo bought off the security manager. Vital life lesson. If someone you thought was weak suddenly steps straight into your space, you are completely out of your league. She tells him straight up they knew about the strike all along. Lorenzo goes completely pale as his arrogant vibe shatters. He calls her a bluffing liar, but Daisy stares him down with absolute villain energy. She literally dares him to call his hitman right now and see who answers. The tension is insane. Lorenzo hesitates, then nods at his giant enforcer, Victor, to make the call. Victor dials the burner phone, and those seconds feel like an eternity. Suddenly, Victor's tough guy face shifts into pure nightmare mode. He starts shaking and whispers to his boss that Alessandro's lieutenant picked up the phone. All their hitmen are already dead. Lorenzo snaps his head back to Daisy, looking absolutely furious. Life lesson. Never try to outsmart a master strategist without checking your own blind spots first. Lorenzo loses his mind and orders his guard to grab her. But guys, Daisy is done playing. Moving on instinct, she drops her glass, letting it shatter on the marble. In a flash, she whips out the compact Glock 43 her boss gifted her. Before the giant enforcer can even draw his weapon, Daisy levels her gun and fires. The shot is muffled by the orchestra, but the damage is brutal. She completely shatters the big guy's kneecap. He roars in agony, crashing down in a messy heap of blood and suit fabric. The wealthy guests finally see the violence and start screaming in terror, instantly ruining the fancy charity ball vibe. Lorenzo just freezes in absolute shock. Quick life lesson. Never push the innocent girl into a corner unless you are fully prepared to catch a bullet. Lorenzo stares at the Glock. Daisy has aimed right at his chest. Her hands are completely steady. She looks like a total ice queen, her diamonds sparkling as she tells him that if he moves, he dies. Lorenzo tries to act tough, claiming she will not shoot because she is just a weak waitress with zero stomach for murder. Yet he is too terrified to move an inch. Then, the most epic line ever drops from the shadows. She doesn't have to. Boom! Alessandro Rossi steps out of the crowd like a god of vengeance. His jacket is open, his weapon is drawn, and the terrifying, violent energy radiating off this man makes the remaining guests scatter like terrified insects. Simple life lesson. If you try to corner the queen, you better be fully prepared to face the unholy wrath of the king. The craziest part, guys. Alessandro does not even look at Lorenzo. His obsessive eyes are glued entirely to Daisy. He takes in the gun, the broken glass, and the bleeding hitman. And he is not mad. Instead, he looks absolutely proud of her. He steps next to Daisy, brushing her arm, and finally looks at Lorenzo, who is totally pale. His deep voice echoes through the silent ballroom. He tells Lorenzo that he came for his queen, and it is checkmate. He casually raises his weapon. Lorenzo opens his mouth to beg, but it is way too late. 2 rapid shots ring out, and the head of the Falcone syndicate drops dead before he even hits the marble floor. Total game over. Quick life lesson. In the ultimate game of power, if you make a move on the queen, you will get instantly deleted from the board. Sirens wail outside, but honestly, those cops are entirely on Alessandro's payroll. Everything will be scrubbed. The footage wiped, witnesses paid off, and this bloody mess will vanish. Just another Tuesday in the underworld. Alessandro lowers his gun and turns to Daisy. He gently takes the weapon from her shaking hands, clicks the safety, and tucks it away. Then he softens his terrifying vibe, gently cupping her face in his warm hands. He softly asks if she is hurt, calling her his queen in smooth Italian. Daisy stares at the dead rival boss, then straight into the dark eyes of the man who dragged her into hell, only to crown her as its absolute ruler. Life lesson. Romance is complicated, but having a partner who happily funds the crime scene cleanup is a massive flex. You and I must admit, this character arc is fully legendary. The innocent waitress from the diner is officially gone. In her place stands a ruthless mafia queen forged in pure fire. She leans into Alessandro's touch, whispering that she is perfectly fine. She tells him she is exactly where she belongs, permanently sealing her dark fate. Guys, that is the wild reality of how one single choice can completely rewrite your destiny. Daisy proved that survival is never just about hiding from the monsters in the dark. Sometimes, it is about looking the devil straight in the eye and learning to dominate his own game. Final life lesson: if you cannot escape the villains, you might as well take the throne and rule over them. Stick around to see what this terrifying power couple conquers next.
One of the most powerful lessons from Daisy Gallagher's story is that a single decision made under pressure can completely transform a person's life. At the beginning, Daisy is an exhausted working the graveyard shift, trying to survive debt, poverty, and responsibility for her injured brother Leo. Her world is small, difficult, and invisible. She has no power, no protection, and no reason to involve herself in dangerous matters. Yet when Alessandro Rossi stumbles into the diner bleeding and Detective Miller arrives to finish the job, Daisy makes a choice that could have killed her. She lies to a corrupt police officer and hides a wounded Mafia boss in the storage pantry. This moment teaches an important educational lesson. Courage is not always loud or planned. Sometimes it appears in a few seconds when fear and conscience collide. Daisy does not save Alessandro because she wants reward, romance, or power. She acts because she understands that Miller is not justice. He is another predator. Her courage comes from survival instinct, but also from moral clarity. She recognizes that doing nothing would not keep her safe. It would only make her a silent witness to murder. In real life, people face moments where they must choose between staying and doing what is right. The story reminds viewers that bravery does not require wealth, status, or physical strength. Daisy is terrified, but she still thinks quickly, hides the blood, lies convincingly, and protects herself and the man in danger. The educational value is clear. Ordinary people can show extraordinary courage when they refuse to freeze in the face of danger. Daisy's life changes because she acts, not because she waits to be rescued.